The first time Commander Rellin saw Ryan Prover half-slumped over the navigation console, eyes sunken and fingers twitching erratically over the control panel, he assumed the human had been poisoned. The Yllari weren't known for subtlety, and this particular mission had skirted dangerously close to their mining colonies. Medical emergency! Rellin shouted, his 3 arms flailing as he activated the emergency beacon. The bridge lights dimmed, the status screen switched to red, and the ship's AI began to reroute life support to the command deck. Ryan blinked slowly. What's your problem? You are convulsing. Rellin pointed. Your pupils are dilated, your skin tone is uneven, and you are holding that. He gestured toward the steaming cup in Ryan's hand, fluid like it contains your soul. It does, Ryan muttered, taking another sip. It's coffee. Coffee is not medication. No, it's better. The medical officer, a thin, jittery alien named Zeek, arrived moments later and immediately began scanning Ryan with a palm-sized biosensor. His voice warbled with concern. Core temperature elevated, blood pressure spiking, cortisol off the charts. Commander, he is entering systemic collapse. Ryan waved them off with a lazy motion. I've had worse. You are undergoing multi-organ stress. I'm fine, Zeek. I've just been up for. What day is it? Rellin checked a chronograph. You began the gravity recalibration sequence 4 Earth days ago. Right? So, for days. That's nothing. Zeek stared. Humans require sleep. You have not entered REM cycles in over 96 hours. Ryan drained the cup. Coffee handles that. Rellin slapped a flat hand against the console. No, it does not. You are deteriorating before our visual sensors. Ryan stood up too quickly and swayed. Zeek caught him before he hit the floor. It took another 2 hours to convince him to lie down. The ship's AI, sensing a command override was needed, locked the navigation systems and issued a forced rest protocol. Ryan growled something about bureaucratic algorithms before finally collapsing onto the medical cot. Zeek hovered beside him, scanning continuously. His brain activity is erratic. He is cycling through alpha and beta waves at an unnatural speed. Rellin paced nearby. Why would he do this to himself? For the mission, Zeek guessed. Perhaps he believed his presence was necessary. His presence is always necessary. That does not mean he must destroy himself. 2 days later, Ryan awoke groggy, sore, and annoyed. You drugged me. You were on the verge of collapse, Zeek replied. You needed sleep. Could have just let me finish the course alignment. Then sleep. Rellin entered the medical bay holding 3 reports. You caused a system-wide panic. Half the crew thought you were dying. I was just tired. You were hallucinating. I saw a few weird things, sure. You tried to recalibrate the oxygen levels using a spatula. Ryan rubbed his face. That one's new. Rellin dropped the reports on the table. You humans are baffling. Ryan stood, wobbling slightly. We adapt. That's our thing. Zeek shook his head. Adaptation is not the same as self-destruction. Ryan raised a finger. But close enough when there's caffeine. The next mission required a planetary survey on Ixalan 3, a storm-ravaged world with erratic magnetic fields. The atmospheric interference meant no drones could be deployed, it had to be done manually. Ryan volunteered immediately. You were just released from medical, Rellin objected. I've slept. I'm good. You slept for less than 6 hours. That's a solid nap. Zeek added, you need at least 8 for recovery. Not if I bring coffee. Rellin stared at him. You cannot keep using that as a solution. It's not a solution. It's survival. The landing was rough. The ion storms knocked out half the sensors before they even touched down. Ryan, Rellin, and 2 engineers slogged through knee-deep mud toward the ridgeline where the mineral deposits spiked. How long can your body endure this abuse? Rellin asked while scanning the terrain. I don't know. We haven't found the limit yet. A lightning strike landed less than 20 meters away, sending a shockwave that knocked them all off their feet. Ryan hit the ground hard, his backpack cushioning the fall slightly, but his wrist bent awkwardly under the weight. Ow, damn it. Zeke's voice came through the comms. Vitals show increased heart rate and localized stress. Ryan, report. My wrist's not right. Back at the ship, the medbay confirmed the fracture. Zeek ran the scan twice to be sure. Hairline fracture of the distal radius. You'll need a cast. 6 weeks minimum. Ryan grimaced. 6? Yes. And reduced activity for the duration. Rellin crossed his arms. Will you still claim coffee can handle that? Ryan didn't respond. You pushed too far. You are not indestructible. I didn't think I was. You acted as if you were. Ryan stared at the ceiling. I just didn't want to be the reason something went wrong. Rellin softened slightly. You were never the reason, but your recklessness could become one. The next few weeks were quiet. Ryan wore the cast, took his meds, followed orders. He even slept. The crew relaxed, believing the worst was over. Then came the Draxan encounter. Their ship was pulled into a gravity well near a collapsed star, drifting dangerously close to a Draxan outpost. The Draxan didn't appreciate uninvited guests. They scrambled fighters immediately. Ryan was on the bridge in minutes, cast and all. No! Zeek shouted. You're not cleared for duty. The Draxan don't care about my medical leave. Your arm. Still got one good one. Rellin looked torn, then nodded. Take navigation. Ryan slid into the seat, wincing. I need coffee. Zeek tossed him a thermos. Already made it. Bless you, Zeek. The dogfight lasted 12 minutes. Ryan's one-handed maneuvers were crude but effective. He rerouted power, outflanked 2 fighters, and tricked the others into firing on each other by bouncing signals off the gravity field. When the last Draxan ship spun out of control and vanished into the star's edge, the crew erupted in cheers. Rellin turned to Ryan. You are injured, sleep-deprived again, and running on stimulants. You should not be functional. Ryan leaned back. Coffee handles that. Zeek muttered. I hate that phrase. Ryan grinned. But it works. You're a walking contradiction. Aren't we all? Rellin lowered his voice. Do all humans do this? Some. Most know better. I just get stubborn. Why? Ryan looked at the stars outside the viewport. Because we don't know how not to try. Rellin didn't argue. He just sat beside him in silence. And for once, Ryan took a long sip of coffee and closed his eyes. The Cornix delegation arrived 3 days after the Draxan incident, riding in on a diplomatic vessel shaped like a spiraled nautilus and coated in a translucent resin that shimmered unsettlingly whenever someone looked at it too long. The Cornix were known for their obsession with protocol, their 12-hour greeting ceremonies, and their complete inability to tolerate unpredictability, which made it especially unfortunate that they'd been scheduled to meet with the human. Ryan had only just regained full use of his arm. The cast had come off that morning, and Zeek had instructed him to avoid any strenuous activity, sudden impacts, or, as he put it, the catastrophic gravitational consequences of your usual choices. Ryan signed the discharge waiver without reading it, flexed his wrist, and asked if the Cornix liked jazz. Zeek didn't answer. He was already preparing the crash cart. The docking corridor extended with a hydraulic groan, connecting the 2 ships. Rellin stood at the airlock with his uniform pressed to perfection and a ceremonial translator disc affixed to his collar. Ryan, beside him, sipped from a flask labeled "Not Coffee" in thick black marker. Rellin didn't ask. The Cornix emerged in a slow procession, each member clicking their mandibles in sync, their elongated necks swaying with serpentine grace. Their lead diplomat, Counselor Zeek, had a cranial frill that fluttered when he spoke. You will present the agreed-upon sequence of gestures, Zeek said. That's your job, Ryan replied. Rellin stepped between them. Commander Prover is unfamiliar with the full ceremonial order. However, he will participate in the abbreviated sequence. Zeek's frill twitched. That is not satisfactory. An insult to one Cornix is an insult to all. Ryan set down the flask on a nearby console and mimicked the last few gestures he'd seen Zeek perform. His limbs moved with the loose coordination of someone attempting Tai Chi while being electrocuted. Zeek recoiled. You just declared the union of embedded kinship to be a fraudulent lineage. Oops. Then you challenged my reproductive authority. Ryan shrugged. I wasn't aiming for that one. Rellin took a slow, deliberate breath. Perhaps we should proceed to the briefing chamber. Hours later, the 2 crews sat in a circular room lined with environmental balancing fields tailored to each species. The Cornix required 70% humidity and ambient vibrations at 270 Hz, which meant everyone else had to wear bone conduction filters to avoid headaches. Zeek unspooled a scroll from his thoracic pouch. We seek clarification regarding the human response to psionic destabilization. Your records indicate you tanked it during the Cylon Pulse event. Ryan leaned forward. Yeah, that was rough. You maintained neural cohesion after exposure to a Class 5 dissonance wave. Barely. Had a migraine for like 4 days. Thought I was hearing my own thoughts in someone else's voice. That is clinically impossible. Well, tell that to the voice. It kept recommending soup. Tiarzek's frill vibrated violently. You are either lying or irreparably malformed. You're welcome to scan me. The Cornix produced a crystalline probe and ran it over Ryan's head. Data streamed onto a panel resembling a floating jellyfish. Tiarzek examined it in silence. Your neural lattice is irregular. Been told that. You possess redundancy pathways in the anterior cortex. That is not standard. Ryan blinked. What does that mean? It means your brain appears to have engineered its own backup systems. I guess that's good? It is not. It suggests a biological response to repeated catastrophic overload. Yeah. That tracks. You have survived over a dozen neurocognitive traumas that should have rendered you inert. Stubbornness helps. Tiarzek turned to Rellin. This specimen is not acceptable for standard comparison. He is a statistical outlier. A biological aberration. I'm sitting right here. You are aberrant. That's not necessarily bad. In this context, it is. Later that evening, Ryan stood in the gravity garden watching the artificial vines sway under the influence of the station's spiral rotation. Zeek approached carrying a small monitor. You have nerve scarring in your frontal lobe, Zeek said. Still? It's increased. Your last scan showed a 7% expansion of the damaged area. Didn't know frontal lobes were optional? They're not. I feel fine. You hallucinated a sentient soup. It was more of a suggestion than a vision. Zeek sat beside him. You don't have to keep doing this. Doing what? Volunteering for every impossible task. Taking every risk. Pretending you're invulnerable. I'm not pretending. I'm improvising. That's worse. Ryan didn't respond. The garden lights dimmed slightly, simulating twilight. Zeek stood. Eventually, something won't bounce off your skull. Something will stick. And then we'll be the ones improvising. The next morning, the Cornix requested a joint simulation. Standard practice. A way to observe interspecies cooperation under artificial stress. Rellin selected a neutral scenario. A terraforming relay malfunction on a dead rock with unstable tectonics. Harmless enough. Ryan was assigned to environmental control. The Cornix liaison, Officer Plen, handled structural diagnostics. Within 15 minutes, the simulated crust began to shift. An artificial quake destabilized the relay tower and the temperature regulators started failing. Plen began reciting damage reports in their language's tonal clicks. Ryan, unable to understand them, rewired the translator to a musical interpreter. The clicks became chimes and chords. I'm getting a lot of panic jazz, Ryan said. That is our danger cadence, Plen replied. Helpful. The relay housing cracked. Simulated geysers of toxic gas burst from the ground and the temperature spiked above survivable limits. The Cornix crew backed away, disengaging their simulation links. Ryan stayed in. Abort the simulation, Rellin ordered. Almost got it, Ryan said. Your vitals are spiking. Yeah, that's the idea. I'm matching the system's thermal input so it doesn't cook the regulator core. If I let it stabilize from the outside, it'll reset the calibration loop. That is not a standard solution. It's the one that's working. The core vented. The relay tower flickered, then resumed normal operation. The simulation ended. Ryan removed his headset, drenched in sweat. Plen approached. You endangered your own neural integrity for a training scenario. Didn't want to start over. You overrode the simulation's safety parameters. I didn't like the default settings. Plen paused. You are defective. Or resourceful. Or both. That night, Tiarzek presented Rellin with a formal report. It contained 7 pages of grievances, 5 pages of anatomical confusion, and 1 handwritten note at the end. Despite his unorthodox methods, the human demonstrated a capacity for adaptive logic under extreme duress. We do not understand it. We do not approve of it. But we acknowledge it. Rellin passed the report to Ryan. What's this? Your apology. They're apologizing? No. They're apologizing to logic for having to include you. Ryan grinned. That's fair. Zeek entered, holding another scan result. You're dehydrated, he said. I've been sweating out simulations all day. You also haven't eaten. I get nutrients from caffeine. That is both false and upsetting. Ryan looked at the report, then at Zeek. You know what's weird? I'm still standing. Yes. And every time you do, the universe gets a little more nervous. Ryan set down his flask. Let it. The alarm sounded just after second meal, a shrill triple tone that hadn't been used in months. It cut through the station's ambience like a drill through bone, followed by the shipboard AI's voice announcing a Class V containment breach in the central hydroponics bay. Ryan was already jogging before it finished the sentence, tugging half a jumpsuit over his undershirt and slipping on one boot mid-stride. A faint tremor passed through the deck plating as he rounded the corner at the junction hub, nearly colliding with two engineers evacuating in the opposite direction. Hazardous gas release, one called out, winded. Unknown origin. Spreading fast. Ryan didn't slow. He pulled the rebreather mask from his belt and sealed it over his face as the emergency shielding hissed open at his approach. Inside, the atmosphere shimmered faintly, and the air smelled faintly of citrus and ozone. He found the source within seconds. One of the primary nutrient tanks had ruptured, a chemical slurry boiling out beneath a fractured valve. The containment field around it flickered erratically. Rellin's voice barked in his earpiece. Do not engage directly? Engineering is en route. Ryan crouched beside the tank, manually overriding the field's frequency settings. Your team will be too late if the solution hits the water main. That compound is unstable under ionized heat. Then we better cool it off. Ignoring the rising heat index warning flashing across his visor, Ryan jammed a coolant injector into the upper pipe junction. The tank hissed as the temperature dropped. The leak slowed, then stopped entirely. He exhaled, removed the rebreather, and promptly collapsed onto the floor. When he woke, it was in medical. Again. Zeek was hovering nearby, prepping in 4-bag. You inhaled a neurotoxic vapor that bypassed your mask's filtration layer. You're lucky your pupils still respond. Ryan coughed. Tasted like grapefruit. You should not be able to taste colors. I've had worse. Zeek didn't answer. He inserted the 4 with practiced efficiency and adjusted the nutrient mix. You also sustained second-degree burns on your left forearm. When were you going to mention that? Didn't notice. That's not comforting. Ryan shifted, wincing. How long was I out? 11 hours. Long nap. You had a seizure. Ryan blinked at the ceiling. That explains the dream about the angry saxophones. Zeek stepped away, muttering something about cranial inflammation and self-neglect. Rellin entered moments later, holding a datapad. You have officially been banned from the hydroponics bay. I fixed it. You nearly destroyed your pulmonary system. It's fine now. No, it is not. Your lung capacity is at 70%. You have chemical residue in your alveoli. You're breathing, but not efficiently. Ryan sat up slowly. Then I'll breathe less. That is not a sustainable strategy. It's not forever. Rellin turned the datapad toward him. Your performance record has been flagged. Earth Command is considering reassignment. Ryan looked at him, eyes narrowing slightly. Because I put out a chemical fire? Because you risk yourself every time there's a problem. So I should just sit back and hope someone else gets there first? You should trust the crew to do their jobs. I do. I just get there faster. Zeek returned with a portable respirator. You're grounded for at least 3 days. No strenuous activity. No field work. No caffeine. Ryan groaned. That last one's cruel. You're already on a stimulant protocol to counteract the neurotoxin. Any more and your heart might try to stage a mutiny. Ryan looked at Rellin. Do I get a vote? No. And if you try to leave this bay early, Zeek is authorized to sedate you. Zeek held up a vial of something dark green and ominously viscous. Fine. I'll behave. For the next 3 days, Ryan did nothing. It was excruciating. He sat through briefings as a silent observer, watched simulations from the observation deck, and read half of an engineering manual before throwing it across the room out of sheer boredom. By the 4th day, he was released under supervision. The air still smelled faintly sterile and his lungs ached when he climbed stairs, but he felt strong enough to reclaim his post. A system-wide diagnostic run had turned up inconsistencies in the outer hull's electromagnetic shielding, likely residual interference from the earlier chemical breach. Ryan offered to recalibrate the emitters from the maintenance ring. Rellin hesitated, then agreed on the condition that Zeek accompany him. The ring was narrow, barely wide enough for two humans shoulder to shoulder. The emitters were spaced evenly along the corridor, each one a humming node of energy designed to repel micrometeoroids and rogue particles. Ryan moved methodically, adjusting the calibration one node at a time while Zeek monitored his vitals from a wrist sensor. You're still at 82% lung efficiency. Feels like 90. That is not encouragement. I'm adjusting. Zeek paused. Why do you keep doing this? Doing what? Charging into danger. Taking the worst tasks. Wearing yourself thin. Ryan tightened a coupling with a wrench that was slightly too small. Because I'm the one who can. Plenty of others can. They just don't. That's the difference. Zeek glanced at the next node. You could have died. Many times. Yeah, but I didn't. Yet. Ryan finished the last recalibration and leaned against the wall, breathing hard. You're not scared, are you? Zeek asked. Terrified, Ryan admitted. Every time. But it doesn't matter. That's illogical. That's human. Back inside the command deck, the recalibration data came through clean. Rellin reviewed it silently, then nodded. You're cleared for full duty. Ryan grinned. Does that include caffeine? Zeek sighed. 1 cup. Ryan raised a triumphant fist. Later that evening, the crew gathered in the common deck for a scheduled morale event in Earth tradition involving a film screening and something called nacho cheese. The Cornics declined to attend, citing cultural differences and an aversion to processed dairy. Ryan sat near the middle holding his single cup of permitted coffee. The screen flickered to life and the first explosion startled half the room. Ryan laughed loudly, already mouthing the lines to himself. Rellin leaned over. Is this historical? No. Just entertaining. Does it reflect human values? Sometimes. Rellin studied the screen. There is much I do not understand. Same, Ryan said. But you do not let that stop you. I wouldn't get very far if I did. The movie played on. The room filled with laughter, groans, and the occasional cheer. Ryan leaned back, sipping his coffee slowly, lungs aching faintly but working. Zeek sat nearby, arms crossed but watching him carefully. By the time the credits rolled, the whole crew had relaxed into something that felt like peace. No alarms, no fires, no panic chimes or dangerous gases, just flickering light and a shared moment of calm. And for once, Ryan didn't feel the need to fix anything. Everything for now was fine.